Okay, so this is our relatively brief wrap-up session. The purpose of this session is, since we run a multi-tracked event, simply to make sure that people have some awareness of what they may have missed when they were in the particular set of sessions they had to select, to let you know what happened a little bit, and to make you aware of conversations that you may want to join by grabbing the right people by email and getting engaged over the next few months. Before we do that, I am asked to remind people who have posters that you should pick it up right quick on the way to lunch. Otherwise, they'll be getting cleaned out and your poster will be gone. So on the way to lunch, grab your poster, put it back in its tube. Alrighty. So we're going to have a sequence of the people who led various sessions come up and tell you in just a couple words what it was that happened. And then we'll have a little time for feedback on how everybody feels this GEC went, and then we'll have lunch. So Marshall, if you would.
Hi, everyone. I want to talk about two different sessions that took place early Sunday morning. The first session's on Sunday. The first was the Uniform Experimenter Experience. And to put it at a very high level, the goal was to try to identify features that are different between the different control frameworks, particularly the compute control frameworks. And where there are features that are something that we want experimenters to take advantage of, we should be advertising it in some way that people can actually take advantage of in a sort of standard tool. And if not, we should try to hide those differences. If they're genuinely sort of just gratuitous differences or meaningless differences, we should try to bridge over them. And this led to three very specific topics that we talked about and are going to try to continue, some of which will be continued at the coding sprint this afternoon. One is trying to find common images that will run on, for example, ExoGENI and InstaGENI, including default images, so that if you don't specify one, you're guaranteed to have something that works in a sort of standard way. We talked also about postscripts, so that there's a way of setting up an environment that's common across different platforms. Josh Smith talked about some work he's been doing called Dingbot, which is an example of a postscript that sets up some standard account management, user management, and package installation services, which is a nice model. And we talked about the need for GENI meta information, something that when you're inside one of the allocated nodes, that you can get some information about the environment in which you're in. What's your node name? What's your host name? What are the interfaces that were defined in the RSpec relative to the ones that you'll find in the definition? So these are topics that are ongoing. As we define them better, it will help make tool developers for experimenters and the experimenters themselves find that they can use a broader set of resources in a sort of uniform way. The second session was the Wimax status session, and Manu was leading this. I'm going to give the bullets of what happened there. The highlights: Jim Martin and Casey Wang of Clemson. They're going to be leading the MVNO effort with Sprint, trying to get that going forward. Yvonne is going to put together and ship the Orbit nodes with the OMF software to each of the Wimax sites. Each Wimax site is going to be setting up the yellow nodes and providing the remote experimenters access to the test bed. Manu and Yvonne are going to be working on the integration effort to try to get the GENI portal to work with single sign-on for all the Wimax sites. David Pesavento and Giovanni Pao are going to continue to work on features for the Wimax RF package that communicates with all the Wimax base stations, and Derek Meyer will be leading the effort to acquire the Samsung Android handsets that work with the network, the GENI network profile. Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Hi, I'm going to be giving an outbrief on the, three of the I&M related sessions. The first two, this one was a topics and status outbrief, a session that we had on I&M on Sunday. This one we went over basically the current status of each of the I&M projects, GIMI and GEMINI. And some of the issues and tasks that we talked about on what to work on next and what to tackle that were brought up. Data access policies. who gets access to the data that's collected as we go along. And the infrastructure scalability, we've got a lot of services and systems that we're bringing up for users to use to collect their measurements and access them. And as we grow in scale, what sort of robustness and stability do we have and to address all of that scale? Common measurement extensions in the RSpecs. We've got some extensions right now for Gemini, and we want to make this common for all the measurement tools. And better integration of the experiment initialization right now. GENI and has the concept of creating an experiment, initializing that so that you can access the data for that experiment, and we need to integrate that better into the tools and the workflow process. User-centric and project-centric data model was discussed briefly, and we'll be talking about this as we go forward. You know, right now there's kind of an idea of there's a single user associated with a slice or an experiment, whereas in most cases this is probably a group of people, a project. So we need to maybe change a few things around to make that data model a little more project-centric. So those are the main kind of topics. If there's anything you want to be involved in there, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be sure to include you there. Highlights of some of the upcoming demos that we went over. Gemini had some great new GENI desktop features. They've added some active measurement configuration, and we have ExoGENI support now. So those were all demonstrated throughout the last few days. GIMI did some demonstration of the VLC Dash and the OpenFlow experiments. Most of you probably saw some of that during the Plenary demonstrations. And this demonstrated some of the closed loop experiment capability, the repeating experiments. And then we also demonstrated InstaGENI support for GIMI. So some of the opportunities that were brought up for a value-added contributions by these two projects are increased infrastructure measurements. There's a lot of people asking for these type of measurements and this information, and so we need to work on that a little bit more, bring that in. Logging of control events and other pieces of information that will be helpful. And data repositories. As we are collecting all these measurements into what repositories do we make sure they're available in, what existing repositories that are out there do we have relationships with, and so on. So these are some of the things that we'll probably discuss going forward. The next session on Monday was the looking forward. So this was more of a fresh look at where do we want to go with I&M in the next 6 to 9 months. Discovery of services, configuration, and environment in the image. This addressed kind of the fact that what we do is limited right now by what is in the image. So supporting having custom measurement tools, can we discover what is in the image when it comes up? Can we, as well as the configuration, the environment that image is running on, and to better support these tools and make this a little more flexible and enable wider support of image types. Expanding measurement support. There's plugin architecture right now in Gemini that makes this expansion pretty low risk. So what other measurements do we want to add as we're going forward? Layer 2 measurements were brought up as we want to increase that capability, as well as stitching. RSpec conformance and parsing, how to deal with the semantic differences in the different RSpecs, whether it's running on ExoGENI or InstaGENI. Having a common parsing or generation tool for RSpecs would be very valuable for these tool developers. Sliver update functionality. Yes, we need it. The Gemini right now, actually they had the ability to dynamically add a global node to the slice, and we had to disable that because of the it's not supported across all of the different aggregates. So having this ability to update slivers will allow them to bring that back. Programmability versus point and click. This is, is it better to have more of a programmable ability to create the experiments, or is it better to have more of a point and click experience? The general consensus is it's good to have both, of course, and this is very, very influenced by the scale of the experiment. So we want to continue to try and cover both ends of the spectrum as much as we can. And finally, stabilizing the tools and the tutorials going forward. We think we have a very good basic functionality across both sets of tools. We want to expand the measurement support, the data sources, and the platform and image support. So we can stabilize what we have right now and try and add some of these capabilities with the extensible architecture that we have. And we need to continue to address the scalability and robustness of the services going forward. And finally, the Gemini and GIMI demos yesterday afternoon went very well. This was an opportunity for those who are not able to attend one or both of the tutorials to see what each of these tools can do right now. It was also a chance to preview some of the upcoming capabilities. So both of them demonstrated the ability to run on both types of racks, InstaGenie and ExoGenie. We received some great feature requests, including exporting data and reports in different formats, adding threshold triggers. So we welcome that feedback. Gemini demonstrated some of the new GENI desktop features, slice operations, as well as some live graph controls. They described the module architecture that enables adding new features and measurements very quickly. GIMI demonstrated the VLC Dash experiment and walked through that and allowed us to go through that in a little more detail, and discussed how the post-boot scripts are used to install not only the measurement tools, but the experiment-specific tools across both sets of platforms. Yep.
Three so far, one to go. Sunday, I talked about the Aggregate Manager API, and particularly how we need to implement version 3, and then push on to implement the update. And you heard Jeannie mention how that would be useful for I&M. Tom Mitchell talked about how to integrate the tools a bit further, in particular how you can use OpenID to do single sign-on across GENI, and we started to do that, and you heard Jeannie and Marshall both refer to doing more of that, integrating various things in with the portal and the single sign-on we already do there. And then we heard from some of the tool developers, getting an idea of some of the things they like to see in the aggregates, in the clearinghouses, including things like ways that tools can essentially be notified when something changes in your slice, in your slivers, that they might need to reflect. Yesterday, we had a session where we had a few different things scheduled, but instead had a long discussion about Speaks For, which is the ability for an experimenter to grant the right to a tool to act on its behalf without having to hand over private cryptographic key material. So we sort of committed to ourselves to try to get this working end-to-end at least a demo level capability by the next GEC. And then this morning, Sarah Edwards talked about how to use the Omni command line tool as the basis for other tools, as scripts. Some of the scripts that you heard Vic mention yesterday in the plenary to help experimenters with common things like finding out when your resource is ready to log in are all built on top of Omni. Then we had a guest talk from Tom Roth representing Ophelia, who took the sample GCF aggregate and turned that into an open source library for building aggregate that's available on GitHub. And it's starting to be used particularly amongst a bunch of different test beds in Europe for building GENI compatible aggregates. Then Nikki Riga talked about the problem of long-lived slices and trying to do things like support the future internet architecture style experiments that want to run for a long time, maybe support other GENI slices, and what do we need to do in the aggregates, in the GENI infrastructure to support these. Another thing we didn't talk about is this effort to unify the clearinghouse APIs. We're working with some of our international friends, like at Fed for Fire, to try to come up with a standard way that clearinghouses ought to work. And that's something that's going to be moving forward pretty aggressively between now and the next GEC. And this afternoon, after lunch, we've got a coding sprint where we're going to go through other things that people want to talk about. And these are some of the things that I think we're going to talk about. Ports that services run on, talk about how you can get slice information from inside your running node. This is a follow-up to the Uniform Experimenter Experience session from Sunday morning. And then ways that you can change what SSH keys are installed on the node over the life of a slice. There maybe have some easy shortcuts that we could do, and that would provide some value added. And then there will be other things that we will get to as time and interest permit. So I encourage, if you're interested in talking to developers, if you like to get help talking to some of the operations folks, or if you're an experimenter who wants help, any of these things are fair game at the coding sprint this afternoon, and I encourage you to.
Okay. We had 2 operations sessions in the afternoon yesterday. The first was campus deployments and research collaboration. The presentations are down here at the bottom of the page, so if you want to see the details of anything, go there. We had a panel discussion that was a mixture of people who did campus IT administration, network engineering, and research. I think it was a good discussion. There was a lot of question about security and a lot of question about kind of how you go through the steps of integrating GENI stuff and doing experiments with it. This was a joint meeting with the Internet 2 SDN working group, and we had a lot of folks from NetGurus there, so I think there'll be follow-on discussions. I think one thing that we noticed is that it's really hard to get interactive discussions going in meeting rooms where there are 60 or 70 people. And we've done it before, but we're going to try and come up with ideas of how to do it differently in the future. So if you guys have suggestions of different formats that might work better for these kind of discussions in the future, let me know. I'd like to also thank the people who participated in the panel and spent their time sharing their experiences with the rest of the group. Ilya did a very nice presentation on how to use ExoGeni now that we've had some success with deploying racks and people doing experiments. Rob was brave and did a live demo, so there are no slides that you can look at for what he did, but you can certainly use your credentials or go through the clearinghouse and do your own live demo. And then we had a presentation from 2 folks from Cisco about progress on the Cisco rack and plans for doing more interoperability work with that rack and the rest of GENI. So that was that one. Then GENI rack operations and management. We basically had 3 speakers there. And again, the slides are on the page. Eldar Umbriev gave a summary of what was happening in GMOC with new procedures for emergency stop and other monitoring things that are going on with Indiana University's GMOC. Chaos gave some insight into what she's been doing with measurements and collecting measurements and open source tools for being able to look at those. We definitely have feedback from a lot of people that now that there are more sites and more things happening, the measurements are more important, so we hope to move forward with that quickly. And then last of all, a little bit of more opportunity for people to ask questions about stitching if they had any, which by that point in the day, people were pretty burnt out. So, but if you do have stitching questions after you go home and you want to discuss any more of the details of anything you saw, please don't hesitate to send email, either to help or to anybody who gave presentations here from the GPO. Thanks.
So I'm going to talk about the tutorial. So this time at the GEC, we tried a new format, especially in the first day for the Getting Started tutorial. So in the previous GECs, we got a lot of feedback, oh, this is too much magic and I don't understand what is happening, to the other end of, oh my God, this is too much stuff, I don't really get the big picture. So what we tried to do this time was to have 3 sessions, and each session was building in knowledge you had in the previous session, and try to walk slowly through all the steps so that you actually see what is happening under the hood. And it took the whole day. So, you know, if you participated in any way in these tutorials, would like very much to hear your feedback. We had 2 new tutorials this time. One was the TMIX on traffic generation from GENIConference, and she actually had, first she talked about how to design experiments using traffic generation, and then she had a hands-on session for the tool TMIX. And we also had the advanced OpenFlow, that it's basically what you saw in the plenary demo, just we had people actually do the hands-on. And all the tutorials went very smoothly. There was smoother than any other GECs. We didn't really have to struggle with GENI in our tutorials. We only had networking problems, which is, by now we know we always will have networking problems when we do tutorials outside of GENI in hotels. And, but everything else went really very smoothly. And having more resources, more acts out there really, really helped in this. Don't get me wrong, we can use more. We did run out of resources, but it really, really helped that we had more resources in order to run our tutorials on. Then the other session was today. It was the experimenter roundtable. And this is a session that we have for the past several GECs, where it has 2 goals. One is for experimenters to share their experience in using GENI with developers and with other experimenters. And the other one is it's an opportunity for tool developers to show the new tools to experimenters that might be useful in the research. So in the first category, we had 2 talks. One in the first one, I talked to all the people that came to the GENI summer camp and collected their feedback out of 5 days of using GENI, and presented an aggregate presentation of all their feedback. 2 main points came out, and one was that they would like to be able to update their reservation, so that ties to what also the INM tools want, to be able to update your resources actively on an active sliver. And the other one, that they would like to see more stability in the GENI resources and larger availability. And I think we're doing much better. And I think with more acts coming up, I think this problem will be resolved. The next talk was by Felix Wu, that he was talking about. He described his experiment that he's trying to study the interaction between social networking, information and communication networks, and he's using, in his experiment, he's mining data for many social sites like Facebook. And the main point that he asked for was the long-lived slices, which we were talking at the same time in the other session. And on the other front, Josh Smith presented the Dingbot that you also saw that was presented in the Uniform Experimenter Experience session, which is a very useful tool for experimenters. It's just a post-boot script. It's 2 lines you need to add to your RSpec, and it will help you it will help you initialize your nodes in an aggregate and an OS agnostic way. And if you want to use it and you need more information about it, please find Josh. He will be very happy to talk to you and give you the tool to use it.
So this is the point in the GEC when Vic and I put together the agenda for GECs typically, ask for feedback on how things went at this GEC. We'll also be happy to have feedback on how GENI is going in general. But I think the first question that we'd like to ask specifically is the one that Nikki just put to people. So for those who did participate in the new day-long, three-part Getting Started with GENI tutorial sequence. How was that? And we have microphones.
Yes, I thought it was good. It flowed well. You could keep up. There was time to really discuss what was going on. So I thought it was well done.
It was the best ever. We need better SSH through the hotel wireless.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I actually got through the whole tutorial. So yeah, it was much improved. I really liked it a lot.
Anybody who did not like the new tutorial format? There must be someone.
I like very much the content of the tutorial. However, for the foreigners, it's too fast. So the person that talk in front of is not. We are not able to go through. So to take a little bit more passion with the foreigners because of the language.
So slower for non-native English speakers.
Yes. Yes.
And perhaps more would better written material help that as well?
No, the material is well written, but we cannot go through the material, the computer problem, and what people is presenting the screen.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Other thought? Sorry.
I guess I'd find it easier if we had a single credential to log into, and you just gave a username, password, and you didn't have to send shared keys and all that stuff. I think that'd make it a lot simpler in a lot of cases. And I think I saw on one of the slides today that they were talking about, a single credential, but I think that would help. So you didn't have to drop down into Linux line commands to share shared keys.
So less exposure to keying material.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great that we hear from all the people that participated, but if the people that organized it or were there to support, if they have any feedback for us, that would also be very helpful.
So first of all, I would like to agree with what many people, Glenn said and other people said. This went really well. The only thing that's a little bit of a dilemma for us is actually having the demo night right after. We had the last tutorial. And so I don't know if there's a solution for that, but that makes it a little bit stressful. You're doing tutorial on one hand, and then you got to run over to your demo, and we could split up. Luckily, Kong was here; we could send him out already. But that's a little bit of a scheduling issue. But I don't know how we can solve that in the future. But maybe it's good to think about it.
So let me ask a slightly different question. One thing we would like to be able to do with this tutorial sequence is have it so that more people in this audience could take it home and use it as, in their classrooms or as training for their group. Is this the right content that we should be looking to package up for that purpose? I see a couple of heads going up and down. Yes, so we should invest that effort. Okay. Good. So moving away from the tutorial sequence, do people have other questions or thoughts on the structure of GEC, how GENI is going in general, or how the weather has been here in Madison, Wisconsin? People's tummies are rumbling, right? The agenda is better with the colorful, okay.
Although it wasn't posted in the lobby, it's happened sometimes. People on your sheet of paper. It's nice to have a big sign in the lobby sometimes to have the agenda printed there. Also, were you at nitpicking level with badges? Are we nitpicking about badges, or is that not this moment?
About badges?
Yeah, the name tags. The text is too small. They didn't actually put preferred names on there. not double-sided. Stuff we've gotten right before and didn't this time.
Yeah, the font is definitely much smaller than it's been before, and I was noticing that I was having a lot of trouble reading it, and I am older than I was at the last GEC, but not that much older.
And some of us are even older.
Okay, big print for old and young.
And double-sided. Double-sided.
Yes, way in the back.
The GEC was really very interesting, but one more thing was like if you are interested in attending the other sessions, it would be awesome if you can upload a video of it and then we can watch it later and then find out what happened in the other session. It might be useful or not, but it will be very interesting if we have like the video and the links for what happened in the next session.
So record and post all sessions. Yeah, we've
And also provide the link somewhere where we can actually look at and go further. Like
Okay,
everything
so-
in one single page like a wiki.
So we should not record the sessions and then keep them secret. Okay.
Exactly.
And we did record some sessions, and those we will post to.
We generally, it takes us a little while, but we generally get them up on the GENIConference YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know, there is a GENIConference YouTube channel. There is. And we will generally send out an announcement or post an announcement on the GENI website when that happens. But there are hours of fascinating viewing available on the GENIConference channel. It gives my children endless opportunities and delight to watch and mock their father. And so, okay. Just a few wrap-up thoughts. First, let me remind everybody you are supposed to pick up your posters. I've said it twice now, so if you don't, it's not my fault. Okay. So we do get together every 4 months for these events. They are a bunch of work. We hope that they are beneficial for the hosts, but still we owe a big thank you to Parmesh and Lori. Thank you so much for hosting.
And I'd like to echo that. The amount of work that the host does is large, and we deeply, deeply appreciate the fact that that Parmesh and Laura, you've been willing to take this on. And so on behalf of NSF and this community, thank you.
And an anticipatory thank you to Thanasis, who will be hosting us in October at NYU Poly in Brooklyn, New York, my birthplace. Please, as you head out, keep in mind the goals that we've established for Spiral 5, and that we believe we are making great progress toward. We are looking to expand GENI's physical footprint. We are working to improve the experience of experimenters who use GENI, and we're looking to grow the number of people who are using GENI for research and in their classrooms. We're making very strong progress on each of these, but we certainly cannot afford to sit back and relax. The 18th GEC, NYU Poly in Brooklyn, hope to see many of you there. We do, for those who don't know, we offer travel grants. So people who have students who haven't been to a GEC before, let us know, we can help out. Anyway, thank you so much for coming.